Welcome back to games 3 and 4 of the Generations Tournament. I also happen to have a slight quality tweak. Let me know what you guys think. I have an external hard drive so I can deal with these super large files. And I figure since I've got better rendering times, I might as well put them to good use. So, this first game is a little bit of a quicker game. Speaking of quick rendering times and whatnot, it does happen to have some bulky Pokemon, at least for their tiers. I mean, these are slightly lower tier compared to the things that I'm using / the rest of the opponents and stuff. But this guy was like, you know what, I just want to have some fun, which is why he brings Dusclops and Florges and Mega Heracross, and more importantly, a Butterfree. Now you're probably asking, what does a Butterfree do? Have you played a Pavilion before? Can you answer yes or no to that? If you say yes, then just immediately, skip the first 2 turns just because, automatically with this Hawlucha being a sub-Citrus Berry set is going to do. If no, then let me explain it to you. They usually run Focus Sash if they're in the lead spot, and then they try to Sleep Powder and Quiver Dance and set up all over your ass. But since it is not a Life Orb variant, we learned it's a Focus Sash variant. It was going to do originally what I thought it was going to do. The other alternative, which I actually didn't explain, is kind of a mid to late game Life Orb set with Bug Buzz, Hurricane. It could have Sub sometimes, I guess. I don't know, Sub and Life Orb is kind of weird. I think Butterfree gets Giga Drain too, which kind of helps it, but they usually like Hidden Power. Since it's a Sash set, it was probably just going to go Sleep Powder and Quiver Dance and whatnot, but I think his actually runs Tailwind, which we did not get to see. But Hawlucha's not terrified of that. Hawlucha says, I'm going to sub up to avoid Sleep Powders. I don't really take a lot from Bug Buzzes, and Hurricanes are not going to break my sub because I can just go for a couple of Acrobatics, and by the time you catch up, you are pretty much dead. So, I also do have the good fortune, of knowing what this Dusclops does. It happens to be a Confuse Ray, Nightshade Infestation, and I think it's got Toxic or Will-O-Wisp. I'm not 100% on what the status condition is, but I know it's got a lot of stuff that doesn't really hurt outside of Nightshade behind a sub. So I figure if I'm going to set up on something, in terms of getting my Citrus Berry activated and getting a Swords Dance going, it's going to be this thing because I want to coax him into thinking that he's going to have to keep going for Nightshades, otherwise I'm going to get boosted up even further. But it's during that mentality that I can just say, hey, I'm going to stop right here, I'm going to be good and not get too greedy, and I think 2 is enough, and I can just blast through a decent portion of his team. So I've taken down Butterfree, I've taken down... I can't talk. So... because this actually floors me. Taking out a Gastrodon from full HP, no critical hit with just a +2 Drain Punch was pretty impressive to me. Hawlucha's not an absolute powerhouse, but +2 is pretty good, but Drain Punch is also not a very high base power move either. Acrobatics, on the other hand, after you've lost your item, is a force to be reckoned with, and anything that does not resist it is gonna have a pretty bad time. So I ended up going for Drain Punch on the Gastrodon because I actually wanted to recover a bunch of HP back, and I ended up going for Acrobatics, now pulling out the big guns on the Musharna, and it turns out that that was probably a roll, and that's upsetting because I could have done some serious work. I almost could have gotten the 6-0 lead sweep, and I say this because his last one is a Heracross, and Heracross has nothing to touch Hawlucha. Even if it happens to be a Scarf variant, I'm already unburdened, and I'm already double speed. He's not catching up to me. If I got a higher roll, it would have just been a straight Hawlucha sweep. But Hawlucha goes down the line of duty, taking out 4 out of 6 Pokemon, severely denting the 5th, and leaving Mega Gardevoir in a pretty good spot to just say, hey, I got you, boo. I'm going to go ahead and clean up that Musharna, and I'm going to go ahead and take out that Mega Heracross for you. And that's pretty much the middle game there, which ultimately just ended up me ending it at the very beginning of the game because I knew exactly what that Butterfree wanted to do. There's not a lot that it will do outside of that. It's either going to Sleep Powder, it's going to straight out Hurricane, or it's gonna switch because it doesn't like that situation being up against a flying type. Being weak to one of its own types is kind of silly, but I'm honestly just stalling for time right now because I just need to blast the Heracross with a Hyper Voice to win that game, and that happened to be game 3, which was the 3rd game out of that bracket. And now we move on to a slightly more serious game where we actually have some very common OU things here. I'm not sure if they're still common now, but I've seen a lot of these pretty often, except for Sableye at the time. And Chestnut's not even in that tier. She's the weird girl at the club. But Landers, Heatran, Sableye, and Zapdos are all things I see fairly often. I mean, minus Zapdos as well. Zapdos is still nice to use in OU. Shout out to Zapdos. But I figure I'm going to go ahead and lead off with Rotom because looking at this entire team, the one I'm actually the most scared of is Azumarill. So leading off with Rotom and saying, hey, I'm going to go for Hydro Pump to either catch the Heatran or the Landorus on Blast. I didn't really want to go for a Will-O-Wisp in case the Heatran came in, and I didn't want to go for a Volt Switch in case the Landorus came in, and I didn't really feel like doing any of that. But it acts like I went for a Volt Switch, minus the free choice, because I do get red carded out into Scizor, and I don't actually feel like taking a Heat Wave. It's still, you know, all of this happening, and it's only the second turn of the game. I got a decent hit off on it. I'm kind of thinking it's a little bit of a bulkier spread just based on how well it took the Hydro Pump, but I don't really know Zapdos' special defense right off the top of my head to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, it's a defensive spread. I don't play that often anymore, so that was just like, you know what? It's maybe bulky just because it has leftovers as opposed to Life Orb. So because of that, it might not even have Heat Wave. It might just be T-Bolt, Toxic, Roost, and Defog is what I'm thinking off the top of my head without saying too much more. And it could be physically defensive too for all I know. But I'm just going to play it out like it is that and just kind of move on from there. But knowing that it might have Toxic, I'm not really scared of it with Mega Gardevoir. I can just set up and start punching holes in his team immediately with a Calm Mind. But I decided, hey, you know what? We'll go for Hyper Voice right off the bat to get some damage on Heatran because a little bit of damage is all I need to knock it out with HP Ground, which was something she was either A, not expecting the possibility of, or B, just was completely surprised by it. I forgot what ended up happening there. But a ×4 resisted move just deals just barely enough chip damage for me to completely wipe it off the board with a ×4 super effective move in HP Ground. I actually keep it around for Magnezone because Heatran can be a little bit bulkier than that, but it kind of worked out in my favor because I think I got kind of a high roll on Hyper Voice. Don't tell your mom. So the switch out to Zapdos is going to be a little bit obvious there, so I'm going to go ahead and go for a Will-O-Wisp anyways. But it turns out, despite the fact that I did want chip damage on either, mainly to cripple the Azumarill, I'm actually not going to get the Will-O-Wisp, and I end up going for a Volt Switch right here. And I am a Resto Chesto variant, so I feel like I can come back in at some point in time, maybe get a rest up, hopefully on Azumarill, / the switch out from Azumarill to something else. So Rotom, although pretty low on HP, hasn't lost its utility to me. But the original game plan of me now going for Calm Mind is still on the board, especially because Heatran is gone, and that's one of her biggest checks to my Mega Gardevoir, just completely gone. The only other thing that she has on the board now is Landorus to come in and threaten me with a Scarf Earthquake if that's what it actually happens to be. If it's not, it probably wouldn't have come in right now. It probably would have come in a little bit later. But instead, after I take Zapdos out of the picture, it immediately comes in, which, you know, right off the bat tells me it's offensive, it's faster, it's Scarfed, and it's probably just going to hit me with an Earthquake because she's done messing around with it. But turns out she actually predicts the Rotom Watch. Imagine if there was a Rotom Watch. That'd be kind of cool. The Rotom Wash switch in, I should say. And the Rock Slide actually does a little bit more than I want it to. I'm not able to rest up, which I don't like how that turn played out. But I'm still able to go into Hydreigon here. And I'm actually not really in a good spot because realizing in this game that Hydreigon is very much the weak link of the team. I did not like making the switch at all. But I didn't really want anything else to take a Rock Slide. I mean, Scissor's not really good in that spot in the first place because she can just go out to Chestnut. Even in that situation, she could have gone out to Chestnut, and I just didn't want to switch in Mega Gardevoir because it would have taken a lot of damage. It was just kind of an awkward thing, and I figured, you know, Hydreigon would maybe get offset damage and just get out. But it turns out that she goes for Knockoff, chooses not to reveal her item. I'm pretty sure she's not Choice, though, because I feel like Knockoff would have done a little bit more if it was Choice Banded. And the Bullet Punch still does a pretty decent amount to Sableye, so I'm really curious as to what kind of build it is, because I'm not an offensive Scizor. I'm max HP, max special defense, but not a Mega, since my Mega's Gardevoir. But I'm going to switch into my Arcanine here, actually predicting a Will-O-Wisp as the Sableye does decide to end up Megaing. And then I believe it goes for a Calm Mind on this turn. No, it goes for Dark Pulse, which is fine. Mega Sableye special attack stat right off the bat is not that great. but it is pretty bulky, so it getting a couple of calm mines and some, you know, other things like that is a possibility. If Arcanine wasn't such a freaking nuke, look at that. I'm actually able to 2-hit KO it as it goes for a calm mind, and I think she realizes at that point that it's nothing more than death fodder, and I totally just realized there's a big old gaping hole in Sableye's chest where the gem used to be, which is a pretty nice little detail there. But gonna go for Flare Blitz, knock it out, and Arcanine is really usually only good for 1 or 2 hits with Flare Blitz on some really bulky things. And I do want to have it around for Chestnut, but I'm not sure if the situation is going to be able to allow me that, because I am going to need a safe switch in to Landorus. So I decided to leave an Arcanine here to see what she locks it in on. And thankfully she goes for Earthquake, which means I get either the guaranteed free switch into Hydreigon, which is ultimately not so free because she can just go right out to Azumarill, or I can go into something which will immediately get me in a pretty good spot, which is going right out into Hawlucha. We've seen what Hawlucha does in the previous game. I'm going to try to go for it mid-game, which is a little awkward, but Azumarill missing a little bit of HP thanks to the Dark Pulse means that Acrobatics will hopefully be able to knock it out from full. So she goes for Aqua Jet right now. It still doesn't tell me whether or not it's banded after, I guess, the sub, if I did end up going for sub, but I didn't. I ended up going for a Swords Dance right there, and hopefully, I was expecting right there to go down to Citrus from the Aqua Jet, and then actually just get my Citrus Berry and just go from there. But it turns out that she actually switches up moves after the sub, and goes for a Waterfall, and then follows it up with an Aqua Jet, which tells me that she's Assault Vest instead. But because of that, I'm actually able to take it from about half HP. If it was banded, I would have just died flat out right there. But I'm not really a fan of the way I went for sub right there. It felt a little pointless. I definitely could have just gone for Acrobatics. Maybe I was praying that Aqua Jet wasn't going to do that much, but we already saw that it does like 40% to me because Hawlucha's actually pretty fragile, unfortunately. So, get to go for an Acrobatics right there, and I do knock it out, which is a nice little confirmed knockout there. The one thing I'm not a fan of right now, those Landers coming in and giving me a -1 on the attack. And once again, Hawlucha actually fails to get the knockout because it doesn't have prior damage. It's got Jolty on Syndrome real bad, and this team does not have Stealth Rock, so I'm actually just going to lose it right now to a Rock Slide. I'm not sure if that one was a roll too. I feel like it wasn't. I feel like I actually got max damage on that one for it being +1. Landorus is not exactly fragile, but it's not exactly... You know what I mean? It's like that nice middle comfy range that is just like you can definitely take a hit. We've seen this happen time and time again, especially because of the Intimidates. I end up going into Hydreigon after that and just going for a Dark Pulse because Azumarill is gone. The best thing that can happen is she goes into Chestnut, and it turns out that this is actually a little bit of a weirder Chestnut. I do see Seed Bomb, which, you know, kind of a mildly common thing to see on Chestnut. If you don't see if you see more than one attack, you'll probably see Seed Bomb, but you actually don't see Belly Drum that often on them at all. I wasn't sure what this thing wanted to do, but it turns out it's Belly Drum Citrus, and at first I thought, oh god, this is getting out of control, I don't know what to do here, and I realized this thing does not have any priority, so at the max, it will be able to take out one Mon, which I'm going to let it take right now, as a pivot to Mega Gardevoir, which will be able to clean it out from full, because I've seen Mega Gardevoir do worse to even bulkier Pokemon. And Chestnut not having a great special defense means that it's pretty much a locked KO for me. Or she just wastes the +6 Belly Drum by switching out into something else, which will probably die to a Hyper Voice as well. So, between a rock and a hard place, I do lose my Hydreigon there and bring it back up to full HP, but I'm still just going to be able to drop it in one shot. So, Hyper Voice that thing, and then the Landorus, I believe, is the only thing left. But I do still have this in Scizor, so I'm actually going to sacrifice this to Landorus's Earthquake. I say sacrifice because I know how much Earthquake is going to do. Gardevoir's base 60 special, or not special defense. This thing's got like a 150 special defense. Base 60 regular defense isn't going to save it in this situation. But Scizor, you know, having max HP, this one at least, it's not a physically defensive one, but even if Bullet Punch, for whatever reason, was not able to take it out, I would have been able to take another Earthquake, no problem. And that's actually going to go ahead and be the end of the second game. Man, I get really winded on longer videos because I realize, you know what? If I stop talking right there, I'm gonna have to stop recording and start over. But I'm over it. Y'all can judge me on how many, you know, weird things I said in the middle of the video. But it was 14 minutes, and I don't do these that often. So if you guys liked it anyway, you can leave a like, rating, comment, subscribe, do your thing. You know how that works. I've still got more tournament coverage coming up after this. I think we're about halfway through / a little over halfway through. So I'll try to get the rest of those recorded. Not doing it right now because I'm currently training an Ike amiibo, but I will let you guys know immediately after that what happens. And I'll see if I can get another one up later on in the week. Maybe another 2, depending on what I have left. I'd like to finish it by the end of the week because I have a lot more tournament coverage as well. So from other tournaments, I've had like 2 since then. It's a lot. Anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.